here on Umbrella Connect. It's been a little while since we put all these together. The country is now in level 1 of our COVID-19 response, which is fantastic. I must say, what a world it's been for the last 6 to 9 months. And it feels like we're starting to get a bit of normality back. And what we're going to talk about over the next 15 or 20 so minutes is about that normality, but more importantly, how one of our partners here at Umbrella is really helping pave the way with how contact tracing can be deployed with technology and infrastructure that's already in a lot of our organisations today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to my guest, country manager for Aruba Networks New Zealand, Andrew Fox. Welcome to the Umbrella Connect podcast. Great to have you with us, sir.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Cool. So, Andrew, Aruba Networks, or Aruba, and previously Aruba Wireless Networks, a massive amount of change for you guys over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, and also working with a global organisation like Hewlett Packard Enterprise as well, which you're your parent company. What's top of mind for you at the minute, running your organisation here in New Zealand, and more importantly, how are all your team and troops as we come into level 1?
I guess, as you've said, we're back in level 1 now. Top of mind for us over the last sort of 6 months has been, it's been pretty simple. Keep our people safe, figure out what our customers need from us to keep them connected and keep them, getting the job done that they need to get done. That's been difficult some days and easier other days. We haven't done with it yet. It just changes mode now in level 1.
Well, that's the thing. We are fortunate and lucky as a nation, right? And being British and having family over in the UK and seeing how Europe is flaring up again, it's easy for us to get a false sense of security when the rest of the world is in a bit of a more disarray than we are. And you guys being a global organisation, how are your teams finding it at a global level, knowing that you need to operate slightly different to how they are right now?
Well, every single country is different, as you know. Some countries are in a lot more trouble, touch wood, than we are at the moment. It's been interesting watching how different companies have coped and trying to take, trying to learn something from countries that are doing a better job in certain areas, trying to come up with solutions that will help a country like New Zealand that's in level 1, but also help other countries that are nowhere near that yet. That's been the interesting thing. I mean, there's just about, we're in hundreds of countries, Aruba and Hewlett Packard Enterprise. So across those hundreds, New Zealand is a shining light at the moment down the bottom of the diagram.
Yeah, that's right.
It does mean that as a company, we are still very, very cautious. We are still not all back in the office, and we are all wearing masks in the office. So, that's one of the offshoots, I guess, of being a large company.
Yeah, exactly. And how about you yourself, obviously leading a pretty sizable team over here in New Zealand? And as a leader, that is a challenging time for not just your team, but for you as well. And what's been your key takeaway of leading your people through this last 6 months?
Funnily enough, it turned out, being a tech company, we're very lucky because we're kind of used to using technology to connect with our teams. The challenge has been making sure that we keep up the cadence of those conversations, make sure that we're getting a real feel for how the team are doing and how they're feeling and how their families are doing and all of these kinds of things. We've stepped up the level of conversation with our team over this time. And in fact, we are still, if you ask the team, they'll tell you, please continue. It's been great having that sort of regular touch base. My team is spread across New Zealand anyway, sort of Auckland, Wellington, Whakatane. We've got a guy in Sydney who works full-time on New Zealand. So in actual fact, some of the remote sites felt more connected over this time because they were no more or less remote, than 2 people separated by the harbour bridge here in Auckland. So it's been good.
Yeah, I definitely believe that overextending at times can be almost to our advantage to kind of learn where those boundaries are about how people want to be led. But also, we are in a very fortunate position being technology companies ourselves that we generally have access to quite good technology to do that, and that's not the case for the whole of New Zealand at all.
Very true.
But I think we kind of owe it to the industry to help pave the way with how our technologies can be leveraged. We're going to talk a little bit about leveraging Aruba technologies later on. So we talked a little bit about Aruba Networks, a little about how your team, but Aruba as a business has gone through significant change over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, acquisitions, mergers, a new parent company. If you could boil it down for everyone listening in terms of what is the Aruba of today and what their core mission is and what they stand for?
So, we've been around for 18 years while no one was watching. Started off life as a basic Wi-Fi company back in 2002. One of those beautiful Silicon Valley success stories, IPO'd in 2007, purchased by Hewlett Packard, as you said. Well, back then it was Hewlett Packard, now Hewlett Packard Enterprise, in June 2015. And there's been an enormous amount of change over that time, along sort of in the first 15 years, very Wi-Fi focused, then became Wi-Fi and security. So that sort of connect and protect customers' infrastructure. The merger with HP has been really good because, Aruba's pedigree was, as I said, wireless and security. Hewlett Packard and Hewlett Packard Enterprise's heritage was very heavily around wired networking. 3Com invented the Ethernet and was, invented Ethernet and was then purchased by Hewlett Packard Enterprise. So this amazing heritage that's been baked together into two companies. So our focus really is, the world's been building networks now for 40 years. Our focus is on trying to help our customers do things a different way. There is so much more you can do with a network. It's the one thing that every single one of our customers needs, even if they're 100% in the cloud. Everything they've got is sitting, in the Umbrellar cloud. You still got to have a network. And so the focus is on trying to keep people safe, but keep it performing, keep them connected, keep them making, deriving value out of that network investment. And it turns out there's so much more you can do with a network than just connecting, devices to your data center.
Absolutely, and the fidelity of network technology has become so more finite over the last 5 years or so, and it's an access point now from just being able to get Wi-Fi to your phone, but then the amount of telemetry that can help drive and the businesses that can drive is obviously showing a lot of value now when we're actually in a world where it's really important where we know people have been. Right, contact tracing is a massive piece, and networks have played a massive part in that. You can see it from a mobile standpoint, with all of the mobile providers now tracing using applications on their phone, Bluetooth scanning, and that transitions into core access points and then into wider networks as well. So yeah, absolutely. Then the cloud is nothing without the network, is a turn of phrase that we've used here at Umbrella. We're big supporters of and alliance partners with network providers from a physical and appliance standpoint all the way through to the carriers, because we appreciate that to successfully transition people to the cloud, we need to have reliant, supported and performant network equipment and carriers to do that. And that I don't see that going away anytime soon. What I wanted to touch on was something that I stumbled across on your website, and with this week, New Zealand moving into level 1 as of Wednesday this week, I was amazed to stumble across the work that you're doing around contact tracing. And it stuck out because not only because it's topical, but because actually I would never have linked the footprint of wireless services in organizations that they currently have and have currently invested in already, and to that massively helping the tracing effort that's needed globally to support that. So it'd be really good to touch on that and how this came to be at Aruba.
Sure. So it's probably for the last 7 or 8 years, we've been working with companies to utilize the data that we collect, the telemetry, as you say, or the context of the devices on the network. We've been using that in a different use case. We've been using it to think about a retailer, how many people come into my shop, how many passers by, what's the loyalty, the dwell times, all of those things. And we use that, we look at where devices are going within an enterprise, how long they stay there and all that sort of stuff. Now that's a fantastic source of analytics for a retailer, for example. How many other people come into my shop are unique, or at least the devices are unique. And we can trace this data and we can collect this data, and it's anonymous, but we can still draw some conclusions from it, even if the users haven't connected to the network as they walked into the shop. So Dave has his phone still in his pocket and walks in to an organization. We can still tell that Dave's phone is there, and we can tell that Dave's phone came close to Andrew's phone for a period of time. As I said, we use that for retail analytics, but with the challenge that we now have around contact tracing, that's become a really useful data source. We have all that data, all that telemetry, so I can now see that your device came, within X meters of my device for a period of time. I don't yet know, without some extra work, that this device marries back to Andrew Fox, or the your device marries back to Dave Howden. I don't know that, but that's a great first step. In addition to that, which is reasonably low fidelity data, will show that I've been in the shop at the same time as Dave has. In addition to that, we've been doing some really amazing work around low energy Bluetooth. This started off as a customer engagement use case, so helped me find my way around the organisation with turn-by-turn directions around the airport or something like that. It then became using that same Bluetooth functionality, and we have Bluetooth beacons now in all of our Bluetooth radios and all of our access points. It became, how do I find a piece of high-value equipment? So I put a small sort of 50-cent size tag on a piece of equipment, and then I can find that, say I'm a nurse in a hospital, here's the blood pressure monitor. I can find the blood pressure monitor. It's next door. In the next ward, I'll run and grab it. That was the sort of use case that gave birth to this technology. But, then we came to think, okay, if we can track a piece of equipment, then why can't we track a human? Why can't I issue a small Bluetooth tag to every employee within an enterprise, register the employee's name against that tag MAC address, and then follow that around the organisation? Now, the upside of that is that the fidelity is much, much higher. So now I'm down to a couple of meters. So, from a full-on contact tracing use case, that's a very, very handy set of data. Yeah. So I can tell, that you came within 5 meters of me for X minutes on this date at this site, and I know then who I've got to pick the phone up and call in the horrible event that someone catches COVID.
So it's been fascinating to see from our standpoint that all the partners and vendors that we work with have all lent into the global effort to try and solve the contact tracing effort. Salesforce did something great on their contact tracing application, and you were seeing these pop up everywhere. It's just evident that the tech is there to solve these issues. But when something's sprung on us so quickly, like COVID, it's not in the plan, right? And therefore, adopting that and making these global organizations pivot has been quite fascinating to see. I'd be interested to get your viewpoint on actually what it takes to make this meaningful at a global scale, knowing that not one technology has been adopted at a global scale yet to actually provide that cohesion across the world. Because ultimately people travel, right? And I'd be interested to see how, not from an Aruba standpoint, but just personally what your viewpoint is on that.
I think the key is overcoming our natural inclination to do things ourselves. So one of the great things about being the number 2 networking provider in the world and not the number 1 is that I can't insist that my customers just use my stuff. So we accept that your normal customer's network is heterogeneous and they've got bits from all over the place, but the world is the same. So the key to getting past this contact tracing challenge is going to be around data sharing. It's going to be around accepting that to build a full picture of Dave Howden's movements on this particular day or in this particular month or, where people go. It's going to be about sharing a bunch of data from a bunch of different sources and exposing all of that to whoever needs it, from an API perspective or however we do it. But it's not going to be a single source of the truth. I mean, I know that, Google and Apple and people are looking at some more sort of widespread ways of our phones to do a lot of this ourselves, and that's absolutely going to be part of the solution. But I think, as governments step up to sort of start following and start contact tracing, the more information we can give them to help build a full picture of somebody's movements. We're not doing this for ourselves. Our customers aren't doing this for them. They don't need to know that this is purely for the good of our team of 5 million here in New Zealand. This is just about making sure that this thing doesn't get out of the box again, right?
Yeah, it's really fascinating as well because there's an element where politics comes into play as well. You've then got antitrust, personal information sharing, and correct, where the ceilings are of appropriation of that data. I'm personally all for making sure we firstly look after the health of the human race. That's ultimately the most important thing. But I do understand that from a corporate and political angle, actually breaking through that ability to share and trust is going to be a huge challenge. Similar to what we've had here in New Zealand with the New Zealand health system. the government managed to actually accelerate the ability for the DHBs and their health systems to become centralized, at least from a data sharing standpoint, very, very quickly by riding through the storm and removing the politics from the conversation. At a global level, there's no power to do that as such. And I think it is actually going to take the leaders, and specifically the likes of the Googles of the world, who have the global footprint, to be able to enable the likes of your business to be able to have that data ingested to make their data even richer.
At the moment, you're absolutely right. At the moment, all we can do is help our customers set themselves up so the data is there. It's secure and it's it's private. But if the time, God forbid, comes where they need to dig into that data and actually, take a look at the movements of an individual, with all the appropriate privacy things, which cleverer people than us will figure those out, then we can use that amazing context that we're gathering from the network to help solve the problem. That's all it is.
So I think we're at a point now where we're obviously unpacking the fact that Aruba, with its solutions and product sets, is far more than a traditional network company, right? And that's what we're really uncovering. One of the questions that I've got for you is, 18 years in the game, and now with a new ownership structure, and now that operational mode is bedded in, what does the next 4 to 5 years look like for Aruba, and where to from here?
That's a great question. So, as I said, the sort of last 18 years have been around connecting devices to the network. Then it became around connecting and protecting, the network from those devices, or vice versa. I think the future is going to be, we're in an unprecedented era of AI and machine learning. If you think about, the 55 some million devices that our customers now have connected to our cloud managed network, for example, the amount of telemetry and information on the behavior of the network and how networks work that we have, that is a beautiful, rich lake of data that we can use to mine for using AI to try and help customers troubleshoot and help solve problems before they happen. I think the next few years for Aruba is all about that AI story. It's about AI helping network administrators to find problems before they even knew they existed. It's about AI that will help, automatically make a change or self-heal the network, or all of these things, which are that next step above just connecting and protecting. So how do we make sure that the experience that Dave and Andrew are having on this network right now is excellent? What does it feel like automatically finding out what it feels like for me to use the network, and then making any little tweaks and changes to make sure that my connection to whatever I need to connect to, whether we don't actually mind what you're connecting to, but making sure that is excellent and that the experience is good, it's safe, it's secure, and if anything changes, then change the network to match that experience.
How do you see 5G playing a transformational role over the course of the next 5 years as part of your solution set?
So we're quite excited by the potential of 5G, as it is just ultimately just another connectivity method. It's very fast. We don't see it replacing Wi-Fi, but certainly as an alternative connectivity for something like a branch, a WAN, SD-WAN branch presence. Having a traditional uplink and a 5G backup. Or for customers that need to stand up a branch in a mall for an afternoon, a week, or whatever it is, 5G is just gold for that sort of stuff. Stand it up. We can secure it the same way. We can, orchestrate the WAN, the same way. That we don't care that it's 5G versus any other technology. I think what it does do, we're very excited by what it will enable from an IoT perspective. Obviously, if you've got ubiquitous fast connectivity, what you can then do with IoT and sensors and cameras and you name it is quite exciting. So our focus right now is on getting visibility of all those things and securing all those things, regardless of how they're connected. So that's where we'll be spending our time. And also, 5G poses some unique problems for the telcos in terms of how do you get enough 5G coverage out there. It's a lot of aerials. That's a lot of points of presence and access points, or it's a lot of radio
There's a lot of physical infrastructure to get deployed.
Absolutely. Yeah. So where we see ourselves playing a role, for example, is we have technology now, for example, that if I walk into this building with with a telco-enabled SIM in my phone, the phone will automatically talk to the network. It will automatically authenticate and provide me a secure, fast Wi-Fi-based channel back to the telco without me even realizing that it's done it. So it's still sitting in my pocket. So it means I don't need to stand up 5G infrastructure inside this building because the Wi-Fi is already there. And it's a seamless experience for me as a user. I think that's where we'll be spending our time.
That takes those business partnerships and those business collaborations for you guys to be an extension of the telco infrastructure. And that's
correct. Or in fact, for our customers to be an extension of the telco infrastructure. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Which is great because it leverages spare capacity in the system and opportunity for customers to actually monetize those relationships over time. If you own a big, I imagine if you own a big, let's take Farmers or the warehouse, for example, and you're fully network enabled, that's quite a big opportunity for the telcos to be able to have access to that estate from a network standpoint.
So for a telco customer, it means they can walk into the store and get an experience that is just as good as outside standing beside the 5G cell tower. That is a great experience for a customer. So and they don't need to be searching around and connecting to SSIDs and to wireless and personal details and things like that. It all happens in the background with the ISP. So that's where we're going with that sort of 5G on-ramp technology.
Exciting stuff, really exciting times. And there'll be a lot of people listening to this podcast right now who have taken a lot away and have learned a lot about Aruba. In terms of engaging with you and your team, what's the best way for everyone to find out more around Aruba networks and dig deeper into some of these topics we're talking about?
Well, of course, they're welcome to approach us through your team. We're a small team here in New Zealand, and we are very reliant on partners such as Umbrellar. But by the same token, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or directly via email. I don't care. Andrew.fox@hpe.com or at ARFNZ on LinkedIn. So or Twitter for that matter. Okay. So as I say, we're happy to tell our story. It's a great story. We're maniacally focused on how, yes, we make good gear. It does what it says on the box. But we're maniacally focused on what that can actually do for customers when it comes down to, to experience and to, solving customer business problems. So always happy to have those conversations.
Great. Excellent. So for those watching online, below in the description, we'll put Andrew's details and how to reach out to our team also. And for those of you who are listening intently on the COVID tracing app, we're going to follow this interview directly. So just keep watching, and we're going to put a demonstration of that contact tracing on this broadcast. A quick 5 minutes to look at actually how Aruba have enabled that, and also the demonstration of the business intelligence that it provides to help contact tracers with that technology. So I've watched the video. I've watched it a few times. Really interesting stuff in terms of how a very traditional technology has been advanced to now really help what is a global issue for us all. Andrew, it's been a pleasure talking to you for the last 20 minutes or so. Appreciate you coming on to see us. We'll link your details below. But you guys stay safe out there, and looking forward to speaking to you again soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you very much. So that's it, everybody. Another Umbrella Connect podcast wrapped up with Andrew Fox from Aruba Networks. Fascinating insight into network technology and what's going on in the world. Whilst you're on Umbrella Connect, have a free time to have a look around. We've got over 90 pieces of content being deployed on the platform every month. Last month we had over 500,000 impressions on the site, with over 70,000 of you reading through some of our content, and it's amazing to see the engagement that we're having. Enjoy site, look around. We're looking forward to see you again for another Umbrella Connect podcast in the near future. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
So with that, I want to just drive into probably the use case that we're getting the most inquiries, attention around, and we're actively deploying. Is this idea around allowing organizations to reopen their offices and providing tools to allow their employees to feel safe. And one of the principal tools that there's a lot of interest around is around contact tracing. The idea, if there's a sick individual, they report it to HR, HR now has the ability to interview that person and figure out what contacts they've made over the past 2 weeks and assist with that interview effort. So here, what you'll see is our access points all have Wi-Fi built in, obviously. They have Bluetooth, they have IoT radio stacks in it. We have a significant base, probably tens of billions of square feet of space that's covered by our infrastructure that makes us uniquely interesting to a lot of customers. They want to use their existing infrastructure to be able to do this. And then we're sending that data up into the cloud so that we have the ability to be able to process that data and figure out, what's an actual static device and what's an actual user, right? And then through that, we're now providing dashboards back to not IT, but in many cases, HR or health individuals within the organization to allow them to figure out what's actually going on. So probably the best way to show this rather than through a slide, I want to jump into a quick demo just to kind of show you the power of the edge and the cloud together. So here is one of our dashboards, and we have customers running on this already. And this dashboard basically shows us our Portland site. We are not open in the US, but we did send individual back into the office several weeks ago and put wearable devices, Bluetooth devices on chairs, and he basically played musical chairs for a day so that we could have data here. So you can see here on this floor within Portland, we have 18 devices, or 18 would have been so-called individuals. And what you could see is once we have that data, syncing it up, we actually could do some unique things. Before we even go into contact tracing here, what you could kind of see is we now have a tool and the ability to visualize on a live basis what the floor utilization actually looks like. As you can imagine, a lot of organizations are running through runbooks, trying to figure out how they need to configure their space, et cetera. How do they need to potentially increase distancing? Where do they need to enhance or really drive their cleaning efforts to? And this can just show you here what the hot spots and the cold spots are within that facility. And we have the ability to look on a daily basis, and you can kind of see how it progresses, right? The hot spots, the cold spots. You can see some of this is static because the chairs aren't moving. But this gives you a good representation of the power of the tool, the power of the context, and be able to deliver it to organizations so that they can make more educated sort of decisions in this very fluid sort of time. And then really the second and last case I want to show you is really around the contact tracing tools that we're providing to contact tracers, specifically in the function that they're doing is around case tracing. I'm sick, I inform myself to the organization now wants to interview me and figure out my whereabouts and potentially who I've come in close contact to. So here, what you'll see here, I'll pick an individual. You can see it's all obfuscated here because we don't want to have PII data here. But if I pick person 12, I now see all the other contacts he or she has made and the specific sort of distances. A unique capability that we have, because we not only have Wi-Fi connectivity, but indoor location services, is we can not only see where that proximity or exposure actually, the distance it happened in, but exactly where on the floor it actually happened. And we have the ability to look at this. We have the ability to export this because customers may want to put it into their own BI tool. We also have the ability to actually look at it from a time axis perspective. So instead of looking at tabular format, it's just easier for an individual tracer to be able to figure out, who I should be interviewing. Furthermore, you can go back here and you can actually go and look at it from an exposure perspective. And we could say, okay, who's actually been within 2 meters for more than 10 minutes. Once again, we could actually see where that intersection occurred. And then the final piece I'll leave you guys with is for that sick individual, once again, if it is a sick individual here, we can now go back and figure out exactly where that individual was. And this gives a better idea and allows organizations to really focus their enhanced cleaning efforts, which are very time intensive, on the specific areas of need. So with that, I know we're a little short on time, but I wanted to just give you a real world example of how we're leveraging the great edge context combined with the cloud delivery capabilities to be able to solve for a very, very relevant use case right now. And in this case, it's the return to office sort of use case.